Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about a catastrophic leak for CD Projekt Red. This time around, it's actually the first expansion for Cyberpunk 2077, the one that's supposed to come out in 2023. Now, just know before we go any deeper in this video, no spoilers. We're not going to be ruining this expansion because what happened was a CD Projekt Red employee had accidentally uploaded the files for the expansion into a recent patch for Cyberpunk 2077, and fans had data mined said patch and found all this information about the DLC here and now that we'll be going over. Again, though, no spoilers. We'll go over a general character name, but really just the mission structure, the amount of content, and where it'll be set, which to me is not spoilery at all. But it's up to you to decide whether it is. So just be warned, that is what we'll be talking about in this video. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Cyberpunk 2077 news and discussions, consider subscribing. Now let's get into how this all kicked off. As I mentioned, there was a patch, it was data mined, and it started to spread all over the internet. Of course, as usual, Reddit was the place it really popped off with a post titled "Entire Story of First Expansion Leaked for Cyberpunk 2077." Now, the main character that's been talked about a lot with this expansion is Songbird. Now, this is a person that may sound familiar if you paid attention to cut content for Cyberpunk 2077. In my case, this is a new name, but after a little bit of research, I learned that Songbird was a cut character that people found in the files of Cyberpunk 2077. She was fully modeled, had multiple outfits, all that stuff, but she never made it into the full game. Now, we of course know why that's the case, because she was being saved for DLC. There's more information, though. We're going to be using a VGC article to comb through the rest of the details because I'll be honest with y'all, I was a little too scared to click on the tab over on Reddit and risk being spoiled because unlike most of the internet, I really like Cyberpunk and I've been very excited for more of it with an expansion of this kind, new content. So I didn't want to risk ruining it for myself. So we're going to be using them as a conduit to the actual information on a general level. Let's keep going. It's claimed that the files aren't complete, with several side missions using placeholder text, but the leak appears to confirm that the expansion will include 7 main missions. According to Reddit users, the expansion will take players to the Combat Zone, an area of the Pacifica region which was inaccessible in the base game, but did feature in the art book, The World of Cyberpunk 2077. Hey, just a timeout, random off the beat thing here, but, you know, I gotta say, Combat Zone, I think of Fallout 4 sometimes and how underutilized that was, and just seeing that, it's like, this is what I wanted Fallout 4 to do. Okay, let's keep reading. Players will also visit the Sports Dome, the large, inaccessible arena from the main game, which will be the location of one of the main missions. Interestingly, there appears to be very little dialogue featuring Johnny Silverhand, the character played by Keanu Reeves, with several instances of him being silenced by another character, including Songbird. Whether this was due to Reeves being unable to record new dialogue is unknown. However, the DLC does seem to change some of the dialogue in the game's ending sequence. While the changes aren't substantial, events in the DLC, including the conclusion of the Songbird arc, which we won't spoil, are referenced by both the player character and Johnny. According to Reddit users, the files seem to confirm that the expansion will include fixer quests, world stories, and new world encounters, as well as the 7 main missions. First and foremost here, I love that they're filling out the world more. I think one of the biggest points of criticism for Night City was it didn't feel alive enough. And I know some people may be disappointed that you can't go to brand new locations yet. I do think we will eventually do that, maybe in the next expansion, because I'll always remember going to the edge of the map while reviewing this game. And when you do, they say you can't go there yet. So I feel like you'll eventually be let out of the confines of the original game map and we will go somewhere else. Some may find that disappointing. For me, it's filling out the base game more, which was one of the major complaints for a lot of players out there. So to me, I see it as a positive. I also like that they're taking stuff that is in the map that was interesting, like the combat zone, like the arena, stuff that we did see, we wanted to see more of maybe, or didn't get a chance to access at all, and actually building on it. It makes, again, the world feel more alive, which is one of the big criticisms of CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077. So to me, making use of that world is great. It's not like a Fallout 76 situation where I'm very tired of Appalachia and I want to go to a brand new wasteland at this point in time. It's not like that at all here. I feel like there was a lot of room to flex the muscles of Night City, bringing into all these new little corners that they had tucked away within said city, because that's one of the things I loved about the game most is, while it wasn't really the most immersive city for many people, to me it was dense. There was something around every corner. I'm excited for more of that. And what's great about this is it also reminds me of The Outer Worlds. One thing I loved about its expansions is I know some people are looking for like epilogue content, which I totally understand and respect. I like how they're building it to be a part of the main game. Also, New Vegas did the same thing, right? All these things are done before your adventure completes. Knowing that this expansion is accounted in the ending is great. It creates the more ultimate version of Cyberpunk 2077 than what we originally got back in 2020. So to me, this is great news. Let's talk content amount here. This can be underwhelming for some. 7 main missions, some side missions, some adventures. I will not react to this just because for me personally, I think numbers can be deceiving. Who knows how long these missions are, how many choices and permutations are in said missions. There's a lot of things here that we have to account for. This is an RPG after all. And I think Cyberpunk, while narratively for some, it wasn't super replayable, even though there are multiple endings. For a lot of people, myself included, I think it's one of the best gameplay-oriented RPGs you can play right now in the AAA market. It's highly replayable in that sense. Stealth, hacking, guns blazing, all the different guns you can use, fisticuffs, just so many ways to play the game. So we're not accounting for potential expansions on that. This was just a leak for the script. We don't know if they're going to be expanding the gameplay systems at all. We already know in the recent next-gen update, they overhauled a lot of the leveling system in Cyberpunk 2077, and that was really refreshing for fans like myself returning to the game. So I feel like there's still more room there to add stuff to the leveling system, to add stuff to the loot, what kind of weapons you can use, what kind of armor you can wear. There's a lot of features and mechanics that still can be explored that wouldn't be in this leak. Right now, we just know generally about the written content in the game, which I don't want to leap and judge too soon. I like that they're exploring regions of the map that I was curious about. I like that they're building out Night City more and not giving up on it to try to refresh fans who are pissed off. I like that it's attached to the main story effectively, and it's going to lead to a particular ending. One thing we should also talk about is one of the best characters in the game, Johnny Silverhand, not having much of a presence there. You know, look, game developers going to game develop. This would cut a lot of costs. CD Projekt Red invested big on Cyberpunk 2077, as we all know. And if you can get Johnny Silverhand out of the picture for a little bit, probably smart for you to do. He has, I think, the 3rd or 2nd most lines in the game is what they said pre-launch. He is a prominent part of that, but that was an investment on their behalf. When it comes to expansions for a game that didn't sell as well as you would hope for, it's still a successful game for all intents and purposes in the terms of sales and player base, but they feel like they could reach more, as we'll talk about in our next news bit. They probably didn't want to go all in. Let's get Keanu Reeves back in the building. If they can opt out on him, I think they will. That's how I personally feel about it. I know voice acting has been an up and down conversation in the games industry, particularly on the front of pay. There's a lot of voice actors that we know that are extremely talented that don't get paid very well, but I do feel like Keanu Reeves, a Hollywood star, has a lot of room at the negotiating table to get a rate that he desires because of the name he carries and how many eyes that brings to your product. So it's a different situation here for sure, but I do think this is a case of maybe them cutting costs. But again, this could be, once we play the story, completely different reasons. We'll see. But now let's move on to another bit of news. So alongside this leak, there was another financial earnings call for CD Projekt Red. And this one is from Twinfinite, where they talk about how the new Witcher game is currently in pre-production with 100 plus devs. Cyberpunk 2077 next-gen update boosted sales. Today, CD Projekt Red announced in its financial results for Q1 2022, which is related to the period between January 2022 and March 2022. During the presentation, CEO Adam Kaczynski explained that the impact of Cyberpunk 2077's next-gen version in Update 1.5 was, quote, definitely positive, end quote, both on sales and on the perception of the game among players. We also hear about the next Witcher game being developed on Unreal Engine 5. CD Projekt has started research on the project last year, and in Q1 this year, pre-production has started. There are over 100 developers currently involved with it, and the studio is really happy with the project. This is one of those moments where I'm like, okay, let's slow it up a little bit here. Let's not get ahead of ourselves that we're really happy with it. It's pre-production. Glad to hear things are not catastrophic right now, but we've been down this road with CD Projekt Red before, so I will remain patient until we see more Witcher. Anyway, they provided a brand new chart here for how the teams are split up. If you don't remember, there was the financial earnings call a couple months ago, And it was there that CD Projekt Red completely botched it. They provided the wrong one, apparently. And the way that the graph was originally telling it to us was that people were slowly leaving Cyberpunk and moving on to The Witcher, signifying that support for the game was dying off. They were like, no, that was a mistake. We gave them the wrong chart. I don't know how in the world that ever happens on multiple levels, by the way, reviewing it, submitting it to investors to know, like, hey, here's the future of our company. Someone had to make the chart, by the way. There's a lot of things that somehow that made it through where I'm like, I don't know really what was happening here. And it read to me more like damage control after the fact. But anyway, as you can see here, now the development teams are split up where Cyberpunk 2077's expansion is the main focus for the team as of April 30th, 2022, with support on Cyberpunk 2077's next-gen version slowly weaning off. And there's more focus on the Gwent-related projects as well as other projects, including a new game in the Witcher IP. And of course, there's a bigger split now on the Molasses Flood project, which is good to see because I'm very curious about that. And a very small division of the team is working on the Witcher 3 next-gen version. Again, as I had reported, this was because of the fact that CD Projekt Red was not to be working on this Witcher 3 next-gen version that was coming out Q2 2022. They eventually took it in-house. Now they've moved the date to Q4 2022, as they've just announced. The reason for that was because of the war in Ukraine. Again, another casualty of that war in the games industry was this next-gen version where Saber Interactive did have a studio that was in the vicinity of the conflict, and so they had to move everything over to CD Projekt Red and start development up again over there. And that's what moved a lot of things back, unfortunately. That's what's happening with CD Projekt right now. Big expansion leak, and it looks like The Witcher is moving along as smooth as it can in pre-production, and Cyberpunk 2077 is enjoying a bit of a second life now. So fingers crossed that more people hop on board, and hopefully this expansion doesn't get spoiled for many of us, because now it's out there and we got a ways to go until 2023. It's a pretty significant leak here. Let me know what you think of everything we learned in this video in the comments down below. I appreciate all of you tuning in, lending me some of your time in this video. With that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.